welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everybody. This is Evelyn Hirschkowitz, Reader Services Librarian from the Turn the Page podcast. And today I have with me Emma Gray, all the way from Australia. And a little bit about Emma. She's the author of 4 YA novels and the global breakout bestseller, The Last Love Note. Emma lives in Canberra, Australia. Is that correct?
That's right.
Where her world centers on her 3 children, loved stepchildren and step-grandchildren, writing, photography, and endlessly chasing the Aurora Australis. Is that correct too? And What is the Aurora Australis?
That's the Southern Lights. So it's the same as the Northern Lights, but down here in the Southern Hemisphere, we have to look south for the lights. So it's a gorgeous experience. I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
Well, recently we were able to see it here. I didn't see it, but you were able to. A lot of people posted pictures and everything about it. So that's cool. So we're here to talk about your second novel, adult novel.
Yes.
Pictures of You. I am loving this book so much. It is such a great story. Thank you so much for writing it. So why don't you just tell everybody what it's about?
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy that you're loving it. So this is a story that I think probably began in my mind in some way back in high school. It's and I'm 51 now, so that's quite some time ago. But I remember as a young girl, when we got up to the stage of people sort of starting to have their first boyfriends and entering in their first relationships, there was always some talk about the possessive boyfriend and, you know, the ones that were jealous or had to know where everyone was, where their girlfriend was at all times. And I think at the time we didn't have the words to describe what was going on. And then throughout life, I remember just at each part of my life, I would find myself in conversations like this with friends or with colleagues. As we got older, it was with partners and husbands and fiancés and you know, just through the workplace. And even now, you know, as I said, I'm 51. I've now got friends who have gone through, you know, marriage breakups and are back on the dating scene, which is terrifying in itself. And again, I'm receiving messages that are about this level of controlling relationship. But I think the thing that really pushed me towards this topic for this book is that my daughter, who's now 26, is studying, she's doing a PhD in criminology. And this is sexual violence against women is her area. So I tend to absorb whatever it is that my family and friends are talking about, and it sort of penetrates in and starts sort of brewing an idea for a story. And I just knew that this was a really important topic and one that I wanted to handle in a similar way to how I handled grief in The Last Love Note, which was to make the topic accessible and to also add in a hopeful storyline that is not about that particular character, but another love interest that has that healthy relationship as well. So it feels like a really important book to have written. And I had the advice of my daughter, because it's her area of expertise, and also the advice of a friend who happens to be the executive director of the National Women's Safety Alliance in Australia. So poor Kat has read the book about 8 times. I don't know how. She's probably read it more than me. But she's been really, really wonderful in helping me to accurately portray a relationship like this in a way that's sensitive and will help people hopefully identify some things from their own lives and potentially seek help.
Right. Well, one thing, it's not brutal at all, though.
It's not.
Yeah, just so people know, even though she is psychologically abused more than anything else. So it's not like any physical abuse really that would turn people off. It's, you know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those
very well, and it's really an unbelievable fabulous story. Now, one thing I want to ask you is the name of your main character.
Oh, I know, I
It's the
know. I'm
same,
so
it's my
excited to meet
name.
you.
My
It
name is
is. And
Evelyn. Her name is Evelyn. And
it is.
I haven't heard an audio, so I don't know if it's pronounced Evie or Evie,
Yeah.
but
The well, I in my head I'm pronouncing it Evie. I haven't
okay.
actually heard the audio yet either. They're in the final stages of
Oh,
recording it. But
okay.
Evelyn was my mum's middle name,
Oh, okay.
and I lost mum last year while I was writing this book.
Oh, I'm
So
so sorry.
I actually changed the character's name
Oh,
to be Evelyn when mum died, just
oh,
sort of
wow.
to mum. But it's a beautiful name. I've
Yeah.
always loved it.
Thank you. I never did, but but I am seeing it is just there's been an explosion. I don't know if you're aware of it.
Yes.
An
Yeah, I
absolute
think so.
explosion. Every book I pick up, it's crazy. The other I'm reading your book and I'm at
Yeah.
that bitter end and I tried so hard, but I fall asleep too easily. So I wasn't
Yeah.
able to get to it, but I will be finishing it tonight and I'm loving every bit of it. Um the other book I'm listening to is the Love Elixir of Augusta Stern by Logman, I believe her last name is. She has a character in it also she pronounces
Oh,
it
does
easy
she?
also. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
reading two books and they both
Yeah.
have
Isn't
a
that
character
funny?
with my name in it. It's crazy. There's just been an entire explosion with that name. So
Oh, that's gorgeous. I think it's a beautiful name.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So did you always want to be an author? I know you wrote two
Yeah.
other YA books before you
Yeah, I
wrote this
did.
one.
So I wrote those. I started writing. Yes, I have always wanted to be an author since I was 14 years old. We can blame Anne of Green Gables for that, like a lot of authors can.
Uh-huh.
I do remember watching the beautiful series on TV in the 80s, and I fell in love with Gilbert Blythe, of course, but I also really resonated with Anne's desire to be a writer and the fact that she couldn't stop thinking of stories and writing stories down and her dreams of getting published. And I remember my sister sitting beside me watching the same show and then looking at me with a notebook and pen trying to scrawl out my first novel at 14
Mhm.
and she was thinking, why are you wasting your school holidays doing homework? That
Yeah.
was her kind of view. And I thought, oh, maybe this is what a writer is. It's just someone who can't leave these stories alone and that just dreams of the story world. And so I've always had that. But I didn't write my first teenage novel until my daughter, not the one that's doing criminology, but the other one, was obsessed with Harry Styles,
Oh,
but
okay.
hated reading. And
I
I
have a
thought,
daughter like that too. My daughter
yeah,
was so in love with the whole One Direction band that she
yes.
would go to the city when they were there and hang out by their hotel, hoping to
Oh,
see them
yeah,
and spending
yeah.
all her money on One Direction tickets. So
Oh, the
I
same, the
totally
same.
get it.
Yes, yeah. So they're having
I don't have the capability of writing a book. So that's great that you did that.
oh, yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to just show her that reading could be fun and to meet her where she was. And I think that's really what a lot of writers do is that you become absorbed in just in your normal life and in the things that are going on around you. And that's where you find the inspiration for these stories. And then the last love note I wrote because I lost my
Yeah,
husband.
sorry.
Yeah, thank you. He died in 2016 from a heart attack.
Okay.
And um, because I had been writing all these years, I was just very lucky, I think, to have writing as an outlet and to be able to process my loss through words and eventually through that novel. And it's just been such an extraordinary experience in the last 18 months or so since that book came out, just in being able to connect with people about grief and loss and have these conversations I feel like I needed, 8 years ago when he died. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of fiction to help us work through the events of our lives. And I think that's what I'm trying to do here with Pictures of You as well.
Right.
Um, to share about a type of relationship that a lot of women find themselves in that tends to sneak up on you and to offer a perspective that helps them to perhaps process what they're going through.
Yeah, no, there's so much. I love the way it's written. I love all the interconnecting things that are going on. And I should mention that Book List gave it a starred review and
Yeah.
says that readers who enjoy Emily Giffin will fly through this superb novel. I mean, that's just wonderful. Gray delivers an intriguing romance in her latest. Um, Evie wakes up in a hospital room and believes herself to be a teenager instead of the 29-year-old woman she actually is. I mean, it's such a good review. It's a wonderful review.
No, thank you. I'm very grateful to them. It's just,
Yeah.
there's some things that happen over there with these books that just blow my mind here in Australia. I'm sitting here in my little house, watching things like book list reviews
Mhm.
and with the last Love Note, it was chosen by Book of the Month Club and by Target Book Club as their book of the month. And,
That's
just
so great.
this is really the dream that
Mhm.
that I've had for decades. And um it's just so beautiful to see it sort of breaking into the US the way that it has. I'm
Yeah.
so
And
grateful.
and Dibby Books is the one who brought it to the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, she is. It's funny
Yeah.
because it's been published in Australia by Penguin,
Oh, okay.
and my
How does
agent,
how does
pardon?
that work? That Penguin's doing it in Australia, but Zibby's doing it in the United States. They don't work
Oh,
together.
well, yes, they
Mhm.
so it's it's been such a process editorially. I've just been so lucky to have had editors in both countries that were able to work together,
Oh,
because
okay.
otherwise you would end up sort of writing two completely different books if you
Right,
weren't
because there are
so
definitely words that are different in
different. So
Australia
that's
and
right. So we did. So the last Love Note was already out in Australia when Zibby picked it up,
oh,
and so then we just did some minor editing for that, but we did change the spelling, and there were just a few terms that we changed to the US version of that word, only in cases where we thought that's going to pull the reader out of the narrative. They're going to have to go and Google what that is.
oh, okay.
But
Like for
the more,
instance, I'd be curious to know what, for instance, what would
I'm trying to remember. Oh, well,
would be
one funny thing was that there's a scene in that book where she opens the door and her love interest is standing on the doorstep, and she is wearing what we call an hoodie, which is one of those wearable blankets, those
yeah,
fleecy big,
yeah, right.
I think we call them snuggies or
Yeah,
something.
right. And what do they
Yeah,
call
so
them there?
hoodie.
Udi. Yeah, we wouldn't have known
Yeah,
what
so
that was.
and that would have been, even though that's sort of a funny thing to learn, it sort of would have that people would have thought, oh, what's that? And I have to go and look at it, and that just pulls you out. But the
Mhm.
more I speak to readers, the more they say, please don't do that. Please
Right,
keep
right.
keep
Especially
the
if
Australian
it's
term.
taking place in Australia.
That's
So we
right.
should really
Yes.
learn about your culture and we should learn about
Yeah.
what words
Yeah.
you're using. I agree with that. I do. I do
Yeah.
agree with
I
that.
think in the other direction, we're just so used to absorbing US culture all the time
Oh,
through
really?
TV and things. So for us, nothing seems to surprise us. I think it's much more the other way around because you're
Hmm.
not exposed to anywhere near as much of our content as we are of yours.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
You get RTV, you get
Oh
American
yeah.
TV.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Okay.
get TV and movies, and we've grown up watching all the same shows, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But but we've got
Gilmore
some
Girls.
wonderful.
Did you watch Gilmore Girls?
Yeah, yes.
I love that show, right?
Yeah.
And on
Yes.
Netflix, you get all the current Netflix movies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Do. I have just absolutely devoured Nobody Wants This
It's
on
so good.
Netflix. So good.
I know.
So
I'm
good.
so glad right away they said this season two because they left
I
it
know.
so open that
Yes,
you need to
exactly.
know what's going to happen to them next. So
You
yeah,
do.
that, that was very well written. I really enjoyed that also.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
kind of cute, that Adam Brody, huh?
He's not bad, is he? In fact, I actually might have then straight away placed him in my mind as the hero in my next book.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. You know, we just brushed over it, but I want to get back to it. So the fan fiction you wrote for Harry Styles, did you have that
Mm.
out on the internet or was it just
Yeah,
a
that's so
reporter?
that was no, that was published by HarperCollins,
Oh,
and
okay.
um and then my school friend Sally Whitwell read the novel. She's a composer, and she sent me a message and said, "Can we write a musical based on your book?"
Oh my
So we
God.
did. So together we wrote. I wrote. She wrote the music, obviously, and using my story, and we staged that show at my daughter's school. So I think my daughter, who, saw her mum start this little project of writing this story about a boy band, did never imagine it becoming quite such a, elaborate process. But it was so much fun. And theatre kids are just brilliant to hang around, and it was that show actually we put on. It was the year after my husband had died, and I really believe that story and music and that whole experience really saved me through that grief. It was just
Yeah.
a beautiful, light-filled experience in the middle of such darkness.
And didn't go any further, just the school?
It was selected for a program in Australia called Broadway Unplugged in Sydney, and then it was picked up in Melbourne for another industry development experience where it was reviewed by numerous Australian musical theatre experts, and they said that it had legs to go all the way to sort of a young Broadway
Mm.
chorus. And then COVID hit, so
Oh,
that put a bit of a dent in it. So we're really only just picking it up again now
right,
because of my book. My other book came out in early last year, so that's just taken sort of all my time, that and writing this one.
right.
So there's just sort of a lot of different projects on the go, but just they all bring something special and different to my life.
Yeah, COVID put a damper on things, but the only thing it did do that was great is you and I would not be talking to each other now if it wasn't for that.
Yes,
I mean,
that's right.
you're all the way in Australia, and there's no way you and I would have ever been able to make the connection.
Yeah.
Are you planning to come to the States to promote the book?
Yes, I am in late January.
Oh, very
Um,
nice.
so that should be wonderful. I know it'll be cold. I'll be escaping the
Well,
Australian
believe it or
summer for
not,
a
I'm
little while.
looking on my screen right now, and right now it's 80 degrees today, which is very unusual for the end of October. So there's
Yes.
no way to know what the temperature is going to be in
No.
January because 80 degrees October 21st is quite unusual. So
Yes.
temperature is really nobody
Unpredictable,
knows.
isn't it?
What is it in
Yes.
Australia? Is it your what?
Well, so it's going to be hard to explain because we use Celsius. So,
Mhm.
but it's warming up now. So we are in spring
Oh, okay.
and sort of heading into summer. It gets really hot where I live. But it also gets really cold. I'm very lucky that Canberra, is one of those cities that has four very distinct seasons.
Oh,
And,
okay.
there are other places up north where it's just either wet or dry.
Oh, okay.
So that, it's a big country with a lot of different weather.
Hmm. I've never been, and I don't know if I can handle the flight. So,
Oh gosh, it's a long way, really.
yes. Did you come here to promote The Last Love Note? Were you here for that one too?
Yes, I was. I was lucky. I actually ended up coming over three times to the
Oh,
US for that.
wow.
The first was because I had to sign a whole bunch of the tip-in sheets that went in the Target Book Club special edition, the signed edition. And I flew into Santa Monica the day that they had that earthquake at the same time as a hurricane warning.
Oh,
So
wow.
the hurricane was trending on social media, and I thought, what have I come to?
Oh my
It was
gosh.
a lot. There was a lot going on, and then and then I came back in November and December and did a book tour, which was just really an amazing experience. And then I came back again in January because Zibby Books held an incredible one-day event for about 70 authors in New York,
Oh,
and so that was just just an extraordinary opportunity. So they flew me back for that, and then I
oh,
came home
nice.
and had a bit of a rest because that was a lot of travel.
Yeah. I spoke to Zibby. I interviewed her last week about her book, all the
Yeah.
different Jewish authors who did
Yes.
little essays, which is a fabulous book also. So I interviewed her just recently. She's a wonderful person. She
She's
really is,
just such
Zibby.
a champion of all authors,
Hmm.
and she may have her own publishing house, and I just feel very lucky that she's my publisher, but she she doesn't only promote her own books, she
Oh no,
promotes
she promotes
anyone's
everybody.
book. She's just a
Yeah,
dynamite. She's
yeah,
unstoppable.
yeah. No, she's pretty amazing. She really
Yeah.
is. She's really quite the woman. She's amazing. She really is.
Yeah.
So you said
I
you're working on something now?
I am actually, yes. She just announced it the other day that they're going to publish my third book. So I'm only in the first 10,000 words or so at the moment, and absolutely loving the process of being back in that creative first draft phase again, because the editing phase is long and intense and totally different part of the brain, I think,
Mhm.
that you're using. So to go back into the first draft of a new story and to be learning about new characters and just exploring, because I don't tend to plot my novels, so
Okay.
I'm as surprised as the next person, about what happens. And
Wow.
so for Pictures of You, which is a very complex story with a lot of different layers, it was a lot of surprises that I was being hit with as I was writing the book. And then you have the task of taking that draft that you've written and trying to make sense of it and reconstructing it, I think, in a way that is going to be easier on the reader. So it's such a process, really. And I'm just so grateful to have editors that can help me at this point. You get to a stage, I think, with any story where you've gone as far as you possibly can as the writer without needing external advice and help. And it's just so wonderful that editing and writing are such different skills, and somebody can sit there and have their completely different perspective on your story and guide you in the right direction in terms of what needs to be explored further, or what didn't make sense, and where you can deepen the emotion and that sort of thing. Just wonderful to
Is your
have
new
to work
book
with.
romantic suspense also?
It's not so much suspense, but there's a bit of I'm trying not to give spoilers,
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm kind of at the point where I haven't been talking about it long enough to work out how to speak about it without giving spoilers.
Okay.
But it's a really, probably one of the most interesting challenges as a writer that I think I've ever put myself in. So I'm really looking forward to
That's so
it.
wonderful. And I'm in
Yeah,
awe of authors, how they can write a whole book and then the editor looks at it and then you have to go back and read. Like that would make
yeah,
me absolutely, first of all, anxious and
yes,
absolutely out of my mind. Like I just
yeah.
wrote a whole book. Now I have to rewrite it. I don't know how you guys do that.
I know. I think you've just got to accept that that is how books are written, and
Yeah.
that it's normal to have that rewriting process. And I have realized that really when I write my first draft, it's often quite a skeleton draft, and I underwrite that, so it's not as many words as you eventually receive. And I have seen the jump in quality from that first draft to the later drafts. And so I understand that the magic really is in that process. It's just that it's a lot of work and
Yeah.
you tear your hair out at times.
A lot of work. Do you have a
Yeah.
schedule? Do you write just in the morning or what
No,
do
I just write whenever I'll write anywhere
you?
but at my desk. No, I never write sitting down at the desk that I bought
Okay.
the process. But I do I think I'm a binge writer. So I won't write for a while, and then suddenly when the story just takes hold of me, I can't stop, and that's all I'll do, and I'll be writing at 2 a.m. and it's just unsustainable. But it's always interesting to hear how different authors do it. I wish I did have that disciplined uh process, but I seem to get more carried away by it in bursts.
Yeah, so many authors they get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and they write till 9 in the
Yes.
morning and then they start their day with everything else. But
Yes, yeah.
that's exhausting too. Being an author, I
That's
guess, is just exhausting, but it's the greatest thing. I mean, luckily we have these all these fabulous books to read. So who do you like to read? What type of books do you enjoy?
Oh, I've always loved to read romantic comedies
Mhm.
and romance in general, but there are a couple of books that are coming out in the US that from Australian authors
Ah,
that
tell
I
me.
love. One is by Jane Tara, and it's called Tilda is Visible,
Uh-huh.
and it's a book about a midlife woman who it's magical realism
Okay, I like that.
who discovers that bit by bit she is turning invisible, and it's sort of a symbol of what happens in midlife when you find yourself standing in queues and being overlooked at shopping centers, and you do feel sometimes as though you're becoming invisible. So that's one by Jane Tara. And then there's one that's out now called Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder,
Uh-huh. I've seen
by
that.
Karen, yeah, by Karen Main.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then Anna Johnston has written a book called The Borrowed Life of Frederick Fife, which has
Hmm.
just come out in the US as well.
Okay.
So there's three Aussies to
Okay,
recommend.
very nice. Do your books come out at the same time in Australia as they do here in America?
They will from now on. So Pictures of You is coming out on the 12th of
November
November
12th. Okay.
in both. Last time we had that delay because it was already out in Australia. So that was a lot because it was this long promotional period. Then I'd
Hmm.
already promoted it here and then I had to start all over again and write a book at the same time. So I'm really hoping to now settle into more of a process of writing and then editing and then having a rest and then promoting a book and then starting again. So um, that's where I'm heading now that everyone's on the same page with the
Right.
same dates. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. So how did that work? Zibby saw your book and just said, I want to.
Well, what happened was it was quite unusual. My agent in Australia had been following Zibby for ages and kept saying to me, there's this amazing woman in the US and she's turning the whole industry upside down and doing all these things. And she said, I would love to get you on her podcast because she knew that Zibby had written a book about grief as well.
Right.
Um, so on Instagram, she just sent her a message and said, I've got this book. I love what you do. I think you'd enjoy it. But then she was thinking the problem is it's not published in the US at that stage. So even if Zibby was to interview me, nobody could buy the book in the US. So anyway, she sent it to Zibby on a Friday afternoon and PDF of the manuscript. Zibby read it on a flight and by the Saturday night, she'd sent my agent a message and said, have you sold the US rights to this book? And then by the Wednesday, I was on a call with her at 6 o'clock in the morning here. And she offered a two-book deal
Oh
within
my
about an hour.
God.
Like
That's
it was just a
amazing.
whirlwind, an absolute whirlwind.
Wow. I hope
And
you went out and celebrated at a really
I
nice
did.
place like they do.
Yes, yeah. No, actually, because it was so early in the morning, I was meeting a friend for coffee.
Hmm.
And when you get in the car and turn the engine on and then the song that you need for that exact moment in your
Hmm.
life is playing on the radio by some mysterious coincidence. I got in the car and turned the engine on and it was Alicia Keys' Empire State of Mind,
Oh,
which is
wow.
set in New York and
Yes, it
Zibby's
is. New York.
so,
Yeah.
it that just felt like the perfect ending to this
Hmm.
fairy tale morning that I'd had.
Right.
And it sounds like that I mean that is a fairy tale publishing story. They don't normally happen like that in such a whirlwind, in such a strange way. Um, and I always have to sort of qualify it by saying this is after about 4 decades of writing, and several other
You're
books.
an overnight success in 40
Yeah,
years.
exactly. Exactly.
But that's great. That's so wonderful. I love hearing such wonderful stories like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And is the cover the same in Australia as here, or do they have
It's
different
it's very
covers?
similar. They've just got more of a turquoise font on the for the title,
Oh,
and
okay.
but it's the same beautiful. That's actually a painting
Oh,
by an American artist. It looks like a photo. It's just
yes.
amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's her in the water. I'm assuming that's
Yes,
the
yeah.
very
It's sort of
beginning of the book.
yeah, and it's symbolic of several things. One
Yeah,
is that she loves the ocean and loves swimming and loves
right.
photography at the beach in particular, but also that sense of drowning because
Drowning.
there's that amnesia storyline
Hmm.
in the novel. She really is trying to keep her head above water through most of the book, and
Yeah,
I think the perfect um, the perfect cover. It's
it is.
gorgeous.
It is the perfect cover. It's a great cover. And who is it that's going to be doing the audiobook? Do you have a name?
Yeah, it's actually two Australian
Oh,
narrators.
okay.
And last time actually the audiobook just was so warmly embraced in the US. I think the novelty of the Australian accent was
Hmm.
was helpful.
Love your
Um,
accent. It's great.
oh, it's so weird, isn't it? Because we all think we don't have an accent,
Oh
and then
no, I
you
know I
hear it.
haven't. I mean, I have a
So
sound
I
like
just feel like But it's so this time it's a dual narration with a man and a woman. So I'm really looking forward to hearing
Okay,
that.
with Drew
Yes,
and
and
Evie.
Evie. And so it's Kirsty Best and Nick English, they're called. And what's lovely is that I've struck up a friendship with the audio narrator because I just sent her a little message to say, thank you, I'm so excited that you're doing this. And then we've been back and forth the whole way through her recording process. She's been telling me, how it's been going in the booth while they record, and then we've got into a wider discussion about the topic of the book and about her experiences in life and about her writing, and so it's just been beautiful. I love the connections that you make with people. I've got a lovely story about a young American high school senior who read The Last Love Note, and then she created a playlist to go along with the novel, and it was all full of Taylor Swift, and
Okay.
I loved it. And then she, tagged me on Instagram or something. Anyway, I have reached out to her this time and said, can we send you an advance copy of Pictures of You? And would you like the job of officially creating a Pictures of You playlist, put it on the publisher's website and on my website? And
That's
so
so
she's
nice.
doing that now. And it's just so lovely to have been able to extend that relationship, across two books and two
Yeah.
continents. And, it's lovely.
Well, I think that's great. It sounds like everything is going your way, and these books are wonderful. You deserve it. They're great stories, great books, great characters. Loving it. Absolutely loving it. So thank you for writing these wonderful books.
Oh, and thank you so much for your
Mhm.
time reading and sharing about them. I really appreciate it.
So
We
we'll
couldn't.
have a print copy here. It comes out November 12th, and also it'll be available on Libby. So
Yes, yes.
yes,
Wonderful.
I purchased Libby, so the book will be purchased by me. There is no ifs or buts about it. I will make sure it is in our collection for those of you who want to read it and listen to it. I'll get them in there. So
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate it.
yeah. So Emma, thank you so much for speaking with us. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna wrap up, close this chapter of Turn the Page. We had Emma Gray with us, Pictures of You, which comes out on November 12th, and I highly recommend it. All of my patrons who like my recommendations, this will be one I'll be recommending to you. So
Oh,
thank
that's
you.
wonderful. Thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your day. It's quite
I
early,
will.
so
I will. Have
okay,
a
Emma,
great
thank you
evening.
so much. And hopefully we can chat again when the next book comes out.
I'd love that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We're going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.